Leanne was a beautiful, bright, bubbly, popular teenager who loved life. Her family and friends were her world, who she loved unconditionally. She had a crazy personality that would lighten everyone's mood and always had people in fits of laughter. She made a huge impression that touched the hearts of everyone she met. She had so much to look forward to in life. She had always spoken about becoming a wife, a mother, and growing old with her friends and family. But sadly, this will never happen. Friday the 31st of May 2013 was a lovely day. The weather was good, and it was the last day of the Whitsun half-term break. I had enjoyed a relaxing week off work and was at home with my youngest son Mitch, looking forward to my husband Paul returning home from work. Paul was a HGV driver, and the nature of the job kept him away from home all week, so Fridays were always a day I looked forward to, where the whole family would be together. Luke, my eldest son, had spent the day fishing with a couple of his mates, and my daughter Leanne was at work in the salon, where she was training to become a hairstylist. Earlier that evening, I left home to pick Leanne up from work, as I normally would. She was in a really good mood, really happy, and so proud that she had pleased her boss at work that day. We called round the lake to pick Luke up, and not long after, Paul returned home. We had a lovely roast lamb dinner, and it was so nice to see Leanne actually eat a meal. She had been having a bad time with her boyfriend over the last couple of weeks, and became so unhappy that she would regularly skip her meals. This particular day, she ate really well. She was really happy and bubbly, and it was so lovely to see her back to her usual self. After tea, Luke left on his bike to meet a few of his mates, while Paul and I chilled in front of the TV. Leanne and Mitch were both in their bedrooms. Later that evening, Leanne popped her head into the living room and told us that she was going round to see her nan, who lived 2 doors away, and would then most probably go and see Jake. He was a friend of hers from school who lived just up the road. She said goodbye and told us she would see us later. Luke returned home about 10ish and went on up to bed. Paul and I both fell asleep on the sofa that evening and were woken by the doorbell. I immediately thought, oh, that would be Leanne, she's forgotten her key. Paul went to answer the door, and I heard a male voice. I thought it was really sweet for Jake to walk Leanne home as it was dark, but it wasn't Jake, and it wasn't Leanne. Paul walked into the living room with 2 police officers. One was wearing a yellow coat, and the other in a normal police uniform. Paul collapsed in front of me crying. I had no idea what was wrong with him. He couldn't speak to me. One of the police officers stood in front of me and very calmly told me that Leanne had been involved in a car crash. At first, I thought, shit, no. But then I'd remembered she'd gone to her nan's and Jake's, so that I knew it wasn't her. I felt so relieved. We used to share my car, and I thought it was outside. I knew she wouldn't take it without letting me know. The officer told me that it was definitely Leanne that had been involved in the crash. I asked where she was, and more importantly, if she was okay. He looked at me. He didn't speak. He just shook his head. He spoke to me quietly, and in a very matter-of-fact manner, told me Leanne had been killed. I absolutely refused to believe it. She wasn't even in a car. She told me where she was going, and I knew that she wouldn't lie to me. I remember Paul telling me it was midnight, and questioning that if it wasn't her, then where was she? I was so confused, and I still refused to believe it was her. The boys had been woken by the doorbell, and they'd made their way downstairs to where we were. Somehow, without even being told, they'd overheard and just got the gist of what was going on. They were all crying, but I couldn't feel anything. I had no emotion and no tears. I had no idea what was going on. Leanne had lied to me that night. She was with Paul Redden. This was totally out of character for Leanne to not be truthful with me. She knew we'd be upset with her seeing him, as she was unhappy in the relationship at the time, and we wanted to protect her from any more pain. It was all so much to take in. Through the night, I was slowly starting to realise the reality of what had happened. I felt so numb and empty. Everything was just a blur. I don't remember much else from that night, except having this horrendous, indescribable pain inside me. I had never felt anything like it. The following morning, I have no idea how we done it, but we had to start letting family and friends know before they read it on social networking sites. It was heartbreaking to hear such painful reactions off everyone we loved. We were barely able to speak, and we couldn't eat or sleep for days. We all felt emotionally drained. It was a struggle to get through an hour. We had been totally destroyed. Our lives had been dramatically changed forever, and we were never going to be the same people. The house was so empty without her. We would sit in our bedroom for hours just so that we could smell her. All we could think about was Leanne and how had this happened. We had so much support from so many people, which we were absolutely overwhelmed by. Over the next few days, we began to receive more information about the collision, and it was beginning to come to light that this wasn't just an accident. Luke had also shared information and told us that Leanne had willingly gone in her boyfriend's car. He had seen them both that night just before they left. He had gone out on his bike to meet his mates and saw them in the car together, parked at the recreation ground, which is not far from where we live. He went over to the car and had a conversation with Leanne. She told him she was going to McDonald's and pleaded with him not to tell us, as she knew we'd be angry with her. She promised to bring him something back. Luke felt so guilty for not telling us. He felt that if he had come home that night and told us that she was in that car, we may have been able to stop her. It has taken Luke a long time and a lot of reassurance for him to stop feeling like he was partly to blame for her not being here. This later had major consequences with his social life and his education. The Road Traffic Investigation Team and Gloucestershire Police worked tirelessly over the next few months, piecing together the events of that night. We now knew that Paul Redden had been racing with another vehicle. He had been speeding. His rear tyres were under-deflated and the rev counter was near to the red line at the moment of impact, indicating that he did not try to slow down for the bend, and there was also a defect in the brake pipe. They had found evidence on his mobile phone that a week before he killed Leanne, he was driving at speeds of 120 miles an hour. A photograph of the speedometer had been taken during the journey. All the evidence was taking its toll on us as a family. We felt so much anger towards this person and completely blamed him for taking our daughter and sister away from us. He clearly had no respect for anyone else on the road that night, but what hurt the most was that he did not once consider the fact that he had Leanne in the car with him. She was an innocent 19-year-old girl who had absolutely no control over what was happening. She had her whole life ahead of her, and because of one person's mindless, irresponsible driving, her dreams and ambitions will now be unfulfilled. 7 months after that fateful night, in December 2013, Paul Redden was arrested and charged with death by dangerous driving. He appeared at Gloucester Crown Court and pleaded not guilty to the charge. This led to a Crown Court trial which took place 17 months after Leanne had been killed. During these 17 months, we had all faced some extremely tough days. The boys had pretty much missed all of their education, and at home there was a tense atmosphere most of the time. This led to constant arguments between the four of us. It was a sad, miserable feeling. Our family unit had been torn apart at a time when we needed each other more than ever. Not any of us had ever needed to deal with grief in this way, and it was apparent that it was something that in our own ways we all needed help with. In October 2014, we attended a very tense and draining 7-day trial. We listened to massive amounts of evidence, some of which we were unaware of, but we finally came away knowing exactly what had happened to our daughter that night. At the end of the trial, Paul Redden was found guilty of death by dangerous driving, and on his 21st birthday, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He was also banned from driving for 5 years and will be required to take an extended test before ever driving again. My message to you today is to have that constant reminder that when people drive cars in such a manner, it destroys lives. We must all strive to not only continue to improve the way in which we drive every day, but also accept the responsibility that we all have when we take to the road. Paul Redden did not set out to kill Leanne that night, but through his ludicrous driving and irresponsible actions, we have been left without our daughter and the boys without their sister. I never ever would want any of you to put your families through the pain that we have had to deal with. On a more positive note, we have worked really hard over the last couple of years to set up a charity in memory of Leanne called Leanne's Gift. The aims of our charity are to provide financial support to families who lose a young person in a road traffic collision and to promote road safety in the Forest of Dean area. We are so fortunate to have such amazing support from the forest communities and so far have managed to raise an astounding £25,000 through continual fundraising and generous donations. Due to all our hard work, we were really proud to be able to announce that in January this year we received registered charity status from the Charities Commission. Sadly, we occasionally receive news that another young person has been killed on our roads, in which we then offer financial support to the family. This can include support towards funeral costs, food bills, or even to fund a breakaway. As a family, we took another huge blow almost a year to the date after losing Leanne, when we heard the devastating news that a local family, who we knew quite well, lost their son and brother in a collision. Sam Villis was also 19 years old, and as well as living in the same village as us, he also attended the same primary school, secondary school, and sixth form as Leanne. This brought back unpleasant, painful memories for us, but brought us closer to the family as we became emotional support for each other. The Villis family became the first beneficiaries of Leanne's gift, and Sam's mum Jane is now a trustee of the charity and works endlessly to support us. I hope that when Leanne looks down on us, she is proud of what we have achieved, and she can see how her story is continuing to change lives and raise awareness of the importance of road safety, whilst continuing to keep her memory alive.